Exodus 8. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Go unto Pharaoh, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. And if thou refuse to let them go, behold, I will smite all thy borders with frogs, and the river shall bring forth frogs abundantly, which shall go up and come into thine house, and into thy bedchamber, and upon thy bed, and into the house of thy servants, and upon thy people, and into thine ovens, and into thy kneading troughs. And the frogs shall come up both on thee, and upon thy people, and upon all thy servants. And the Lord spake unto Moses, Say unto Aaron, Stretch forth thine hand with thy rod over the streams, over the rivers, and over the ponds, and cause frogs to come up upon the land of Egypt. And Aaron stretched out his hand over the waters of Egypt, and the frogs came up, and covered the land of Egypt. And the magicians did so with their enchantments, and brought up frogs upon the land of Egypt. And Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron, and said, Entreat the Lord, that he may take away the frogs from me, and from my people, and I will let the people go, that they may do sacrifice unto the Lord. And Moses said unto Pharaoh, Glory over me. When shall I entreat for thee, and for thy servants, and for thy people, to destroy the frogs from thee, and thy houses, that they may remain in the river only? And he said, Tomorrow. And he said, Be it according to thy word, that thou mayest know that there is none like unto the Lord our God. The frogs shall depart from thee, and from thy houses, and from thy servants, and from thy people. They shall remain in the river only. And Moses and Aaron went out from Pharaoh, and Moses cried unto the Lord because of the frogs, which he had brought against Pharaoh. And the Lord did according to the word of Moses. And the frogs died out of the houses, out of the villages, and out of the fields. And they gathered them together upon heaps, and the land stank. But when Pharaoh saw that there was respite, he hardened his heart, and hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said. And the Lord said unto Moses, Say unto Aaron, Stretch out thy rod, and smite the dust of the land, that it may become lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And they did so. For Aaron stretched out his hand with his rod, and smote the dust of the earth, and it became lice in man and in beast. All the dust of the land became lice throughout all the land of Egypt. And the magicians did so with their enchantments to bring forth lice, but they could not, so there were lice upon man and upon beast. Then the magicians said unto Pharaoh, This is the finger of God. And Pharaoh's heart was hardened, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had said. And the Lord said unto Moses, Rise up early in the morning, and stand before Pharaoh. Lo, he cometh forth to the water. And say unto him, Thus saith the Lord, Let my people go, that they may serve me. Else, if thou wilt not let my people go, behold, I will send swarms of flies upon thee, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, and into thy houses, and the houses of the Egyptians shall be full of swarms of flies, and also the ground whereon they are. And I will sever in that day the land of Goshen, in which my people dwell, that no swarms of flies shall be there, to the end thou mayest know that I am the Lord in the midst of the earth. And I will put a division between my people and thy people. Tomorrow shall this sign be. And the Lord did so. And there came a grievous swarm of flies into the house of Pharaoh, and into his servants' houses, and into all the land of Egypt. The land was corrupted by reason of the swarm of flies. And Pharaoh called for Moses and for Aaron, and said, Go ye, sacrifice to your God in the land. And Moses said, It is not meet so to do, for we shall sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians to the Lord our God. Lo, shall we sacrifice the abomination of the Egyptians before their eyes? And will they not stone us? We will go 3 days' journey into the wilderness, and sacrifice to the Lord our God, as he shall command us. And Pharaoh said, I will let you go, that ye may sacrifice to the Lord your God in the wilderness. Only ye shall not go very far away. Entreat for me. And Moses said, Behold, I go out from thee, and I will entreat the Lord that the swarms of flies may depart from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people tomorrow. But let not Pharaoh deal deceitfully any more, not letting the people go to sacrifice to the Lord. And Moses went out from Pharaoh, and entreated the Lord. And the Lord did according to the word of Moses, and he removed the swarms of flies from Pharaoh, from his servants, and from his people there remained not one. And Pharaoh hardened his heart at this time also, neither would he let the people go. Exodus 9. Then the Lord said unto Moses, Go in unto Pharaoh, and tell him, Thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews, Let my people go, that they may serve me. For if thou refuse to let them go, and wilt hold them still, behold, the hand of the Lord is upon thy cattle which is in the field, upon the horses, upon the asses, upon the camels, upon the oxen, and upon the sheep. There shall be a very grievous murrain. And the Lord shall sever between the cattle of Israel and the cattle of Egypt, and there shall nothing die of all that is the children's of Israel. The Lord appointed a set time, saying, Tomorrow the Lord shall do this thing in the land. And the Lord did that thing on the morrow, and all the cattle of Egypt died, but of the cattle of the children of Israel died not one. And Pharaoh sent, and behold, there was not one of the cattle of the Israelites dead, and the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, and he did not let the people go. And the Lord said unto Moses and unto Aaron, Take to you handfuls of ashes of the furnace, and let Moses sprinkle it toward the heaven in the sight of Pharaoh. And it shall become small dust in all the land of Egypt, and shall be a boil breaking forth with blains upon man and upon beast throughout all the land of Egypt. And they took ashes of the furnace, and stood before Pharaoh. Then Moses sprinkled it up toward heaven, and it became a boil, breaking forth with blains upon man and upon beast. And the magicians could not stand before Moses because of the boils, for the boil was upon the magicians and upon all the Egyptians. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, and he hearkened not unto them, as the Lord had spoken unto Moses. And the Lord said unto Moses, Rise up early in the morning, and stand before Pharaoh, and say unto him, Thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews, Let my people go, that they may serve me. For I will at this time send all my plagues upon thine heart, and upon thy servants, and upon thy people, that thou mayest know that there is none like me in all the earth. For now I will stretch out my hand, that I may smite thee and thy people with pestilence, and thou shalt be cut off from the earth. And in very deed for this cause have I raised thee up, for to show in thee my power, and that my name may be declared throughout all the earth. As yet exaltest thou thyself against my people, that thou wilt not let them go. Behold, tomorrow about this time I will cause it to rain a very grievous hail, such as hath not been in Egypt since the foundation thereof even until now. Send therefore now, and gather thy cattle, and all that thou hast in the field. For upon every man and beast which shall be found in the field, and shall not be brought home, the hail shall come down upon them, and they shall die. He that feared the word of the Lord among the servants of Pharaoh made his servants and his cattle flee into the houses. And he that regarded not the word of the Lord left his servants and his cattle in the field. The Lord said unto Moses, Stretch forth thine hand toward heaven, that there may be hail in all the land of Egypt, upon man, and upon beast, and upon every herb of the field, throughout the land of Egypt. And Moses stretched forth his rod toward heaven, and the Lord sent thunder and hail, and the fire ran along upon the ground, and the Lord rained hail upon the land of Egypt. So there was hail, and fire mingled with the hail, very grievous, such as there was none like it in all the land of Egypt since it became a nation. The hail smote throughout all the land of Egypt all that was in the field, both man and beast. And the hail smote every herb of the field, and brake every tree of the field. Only in the land of Goshen, where the children of Israel were, was there no hail. And Pharaoh sent and called for Moses and Aaron, and said unto them, I have sinned at this time. The Lord is righteous, and I and my people are wicked. Entreat the Lord, for it is enough that there be no more mighty thunderings and hail, and I will let you go, and ye shall stay no longer. And Moses said unto him, As soon as I am gone out of the city, I will spread abroad my hands unto the Lord, and the thunder shall cease, neither shall there be any more hail, that thou mayest know how that the earth is the Lord's. But as for thee and thy servants, I know that ye will not yet fear the Lord God. And the flax and the barley was smitten, for the barley was in the ear, and the flax was bold. But the wheat and the rye were not smitten, for they were not grown up. And Moses went out of the city from Pharaoh, and spread abroad his hands unto the Lord. And the thunders and hail ceased, and the rain was not poured upon the earth. And when Pharaoh saw that the rain and the hail and the thunders were ceased, he sinned yet more, and hardened his heart, he and his servants. And the heart of Pharaoh was hardened, neither would he let the children of Israel go, as the Lord had spoken by Moses. Exodus 10. And the Lord said unto Moses, Go in unto Pharaoh, for I have hardened his heart, and the heart of his servants, that I might show these my signs before him, and that thou mayest tell in the ears of thy son, and of thy son's son, what things I have wrought in Egypt, and my signs which I have done among them, that ye may know how that I am the Lord. And Moses and Aaron came in unto Pharaoh, and said unto him, Thus saith the Lord God of the Hebrews, How long wilt thou refuse to humble thyself before me? Let my people go, that they may serve me. Else, if thou refuse to let my people go, behold, tomorrow will I bring the locusts into thy coast. They shall cover the face of the earth, that one cannot be able to see the earth. And they shall eat the residue of that which is escaped, which remaineth unto you from the hail, and shall eat every tree which groweth for you out of the field. And they shall fill thy houses, and the houses of all thy servants, and the houses of all the Egyptians, which neither thy fathers nor thy fathers' fathers have seen, since the day that they were upon the earth unto this day. He turned himself, and went out from Pharaoh. And Pharaoh's servants said unto him, How long shall this man be a snare unto us? Let the men go, that they may serve the Lord their God. Knowest thou not yet that Egypt is destroyed? And Moses and Aaron were brought again unto Pharaoh, and he said unto them, Go, serve the Lord your God. But who are they that shall go? And Moses said, We will go with our young and with our old, with our sons and with our daughters, with our flocks and with our herds will we go, for we must hold a feast unto the Lord. And he said unto them, Let the Lord be so with you, as I will let you go, and your little ones. Look to it, for evil is before you. Not so. Go now, ye that are men, and serve the Lord, for that ye did desire. And they were driven out from Pharaoh's presence. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand over the land of Egypt for the locusts, that they may come up upon the land of Egypt, and eat every herb of the land, even all that the hail hath left. And Moses stretched forth his rod over the land of Egypt. And the Lord brought an east wind upon the land all that day, and all that night. And when it was morning, the east wind brought the locusts. And the locusts went up over all the land of Egypt, and rested in all the coasts of Egypt. Very grievous were they. Before them there were no such locusts as they, neither after them shall be such. For they covered the face of the whole earth, so that the land was darkened. And they did eat every herb of the land, and all the fruit of the trees which the hail had left. And there remained not any green thing in the trees, or in the herbs of the field, through all the land of Egypt. Then Pharaoh called for Moses and Aaron in haste, and he said, I have sinned against the Lord your God, and against you. Now therefore forgive, I pray thee, my sin only this once, and entreat the Lord your God, that he may take away from me this death only. And he went out from Pharaoh, and entreated the Lord. And the Lord turned a mighty strong west wind, which took away the locusts, and cast them into the Red Sea. There remained not one locust in all the coasts of Egypt. The Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the children of Israel go. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand toward heaven, that there may be darkness over the land of Egypt, even darkness which may be felt. And Moses stretched forth his hand toward heaven, and there was a thick darkness in all the land of Egypt 3 days. They saw not one another, neither rose any from his place for 3 days. All the children of Israel had light in their dwellings. And Pharaoh called unto Moses, and said, Go ye, serve the Lord. Only let your flocks and your herds be stayed. Let your little ones also go with you. And Moses said, Thou must give us also sacrifices and burnt offerings, that we may sacrifice unto the Lord our God. Our cattle also shall go with us. There shall not an hoof be left behind. For thereof must we take to serve the Lord our God, and we know not with what we must serve the Lord until we come thither. The Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart. He would not let them go. And Pharaoh said unto him, Get thee from me, take heed to thyself, see my face no more. For in that day thou seest my face, thou shalt die. And Moses said, Thou hast spoken well. I will see thy face again no more. Exodus 11. And the Lord said unto Moses, Yet will I bring one plague more upon Pharaoh and upon Egypt. Afterwards he will let you go hence. And he shall let you go. He shall surely thrust you out hence altogether. Speak now in the ears of the people. Let every man borrow of his neighbor, and every woman of her neighbor, jewels of silver and jewels of gold. And the Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians. Moreover, the man Moses was very great in the land of Egypt, in the sight of Pharaoh's servants, and in the sight of the people. And Moses said, Thus saith the Lord, About midnight will I go out into the midst of Egypt, and all the firstborn in the land of Egypt shall die, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sitteth upon his throne, even unto the firstborn of the maidservant that is behind the mill, and all the firstborn of beasts. And there shall be a great cry throughout all the land of Egypt, such as there was none like it, nor shall be like it any more. But against any of the children of Israel shall not a dog move his tongue, against man or beast, that ye may know how that the Lord doth put a difference between the Egyptians and Israel. And all these thy servants shall come down unto me, bow down themselves unto me, saying, Get thee out, all the people that follow thee. And after that I will go out. And he went out from Pharaoh in a great anger. And the Lord said unto Moses, Pharaoh shall not hearken unto you, that my wonders may be multiplied in the land of Egypt. And Moses and Aaron did all these wonders before Pharaoh. And the Lord hardened Pharaoh's heart, so that he would not let the children of Israel go out of his land. Exodus 12. And the Lord spake unto Moses and Aaron in the land of Egypt, saying, This month shall be unto you the beginning of months. It shall be the first month of the year to you. Speak ye unto all the congregation of Israel, saying, In the 10th day of this month they shall take to them every man a lamb, according to the house of their fathers, a lamb for an house. And if the household be too little for the lamb, let him and his neighbor next unto his house take it according to the number of the souls. Every man according to his eating shall make your count for the lamb. Your lamb shall be without blemish, a male of the first year. Ye shall take it out from the sheep or from the goats. And ye shall keep it up until the 14th day of the same month. And the whole assembly of the congregation of Israel shall kill it in the evening. And they shall take of the blood, and strike it on the 2 side posts, and on the upper door post of the houses wherein they shall eat it. And they shall eat the flesh in that night, roast with fire, and unleavened bread, and with bitter herbs they shall eat it. Eat not of it raw, nor sodden it all with water, but roast with fire, his head with his legs, and with the purtenance thereof. And ye shall let nothing of it remain until the morning. And that which remaineth of it until the morning ye shall burn with fire. And thus shall ye eat it, with your loins girded, your shoes on your feet, and your staff in your hand. And ye shall eat it in haste. 'Tis the Lord's Passover. For I will pass through the land of Egypt this night, and will smite all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast. And against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgment. I am the Lord. And the blood shall be to you for a token upon the houses where ye are. And when I see the blood, I will pass over you, and the plague shall not be upon you to destroy you, when I smite the land of Egypt. And this day shall be unto you for a memorial, and ye shall keep it a feast to the Lord throughout your generations. Ye shall keep it a feast by an ordinance forever. 7 days shall ye eat unleavened bread. Even the first day ye shall put away leaven out of your houses. For whosoever eateth leavened bread from the first day until the 7th day, that soul shall be cut off from Israel. And in the first day there shall be an holy convocation. In the 7th day there shall be an holy convocation to you. No manner of work shall be done in them, save that which every man must eat. That only may be done of you. And ye shall observe the feast of unleavened bread. In this selfsame day have I brought your armies out of the land of Egypt. Therefore shall ye observe this day in your generations by an ordinance for ever. In the first month, on the 14th day of the month at even, ye shall eat unleavened bread, until the 21st day of the month at even. 7 days shall there be no leaven found in your houses. For whosoever eateth that which is leavened, even that soul shall be cut off from the congregation of Israel, whether he be a stranger or born in the land. Ye shall eat nothing leavened. In all your habitations shall ye eat unleavened bread. And Moses called for all the elders of Israel, and said unto them, Draw out, and take you a lamb according to your families, and kill the Passover. And ye shall take a bunch of hyssop, and dip it in the blood that is in the basin, and strike the lintel and the 2 side posts with the blood that is in the basin, and none of you shall go out at the door of his house until the morning. The Lord will pass through to smite the Egyptians. And when he seeth the blood upon the lintel, and on the 2 side posts, the Lord will pass over the door, will not suffer the destroyer to come in unto your houses to smite you. And ye shall observe this thing for an ordinance to thee and to thy sons for ever. And it shall come to pass, when ye be come to the land which the Lord will give you, according as he hath promised, that ye shall keep this service. It shall come to pass, when your children shall say unto you, What mean ye by this service? That ye shall say, It is the sacrifice of the Lord's Passover, who passed over the houses of the children of Israel in Egypt, when he smote the Egyptians, and delivered our houses. And the people bowed the head.
Let me make this comment. This process that the Lord gave when they were to strike the doors with the blood, marking the doors. And in that moment, the Lord's angel, the destroyer, would pass over them, would not touch them. The same thing Jesus spoke about during the times ahead, how that his children, everyone found in the book of life, you're just not going to be prone to certain things. You're going to be kept from certain things. Now, here's a qualification, though. You have to be written in the book of life. Written in the book of life. Before that time, there are going to be plenty of people who fall away. And they're going to fall away after this manner. Because in the New Testament, it tells us how people fall away. How they just give up and lose hope, right? Because at that time, people will go through things, just like us, right? We go through things. Sometimes what we go through can be quite trying, right? Now, in those moments, all of us, every single last one of us, are given an opportunity to continue to believe or to give in, right? To turn backward. So can you imagine a situation that you begin to see things go totally south, which is to say things go totally wrong. And in those moments, things can become so pressing, so hard, that you are really ready to give up. I've been there before, more than once. And I'm sure that some of you have been through that also. I'm talking about extremes, when things get really bad, really hopeless. In the Bible, it's not until God's children begin to contemplate if the situation is hopeless or not, right? That's when that moment comes. And that moment always defines us, because a situation can get so bad. You go through all these emotional crises, right? Until the hour comes, you start thinking along this pattern I'm about to describe. You'll say, well, Lord, I have done everything I know to do. If I perish in this thing, then I'm going to perish within the blood of the Lamb. I'm going to perish because it's your will, right? This is what you say. You get to this moment and you say, hey, I've tried everything, Lord. You know I have. And so if I fall, I'm going to fall knowing I did everything for you. And at that moment A surrender happens inside. A surrender happens inside. That can happen at no other time. Let me give you an example. I would say I'm a person of strong faith. I'd say that about myself, right? I'm not moved by these things in the world. I'm not moved by injuries or sickness and all this stuff. I'm not moved by it. But there was a time in my life things were so disastrous. I began to really think and doubt, even doubt. I was doubting in this way that I was really thinking, Lord, I just, do I not matter? Did I do something to justify this? Because obviously things don't happen on accident. I must have really made a big boo-boo somewhere. That's what I was thinking. And I said, okay, so I was in this bit of depression, you could say, for about a year of my life. And this was after the dramatic thing took place. In about a year, I kind of doubted my own existence until I got to the point where I was saying, I wish I didn't exist. I wish I'd never been born. And I meant it. When I say something like that, I meant it. And it continued as though I was talking to the air. No change, no anything. And then I began to, instead of sinking further down, it was almost like something was awakened within me. And I began to really straighten up some things because a resolve came into my heart. And it was almost like, okay, I'm going to do everything I know how to do in righteousness. And I don't care if I'm delivered or not. That's the exact thought that hit me. I don't care if I'm delivered or not. Because at that moment, I really began to see that I wasn't doing everything in the realm of righteousness. I was going through all this bad time, this tumult. And what it revealed within me was it caused me to look upon my life and say, well, you're not doing, I'm not doing everything in a manner that Jesus would be pleased with. And I'm aware of this. What am I doing? And so at that moment, with the suffering still going on and everything else, I kind of said this to myself, well, Lord, I see it, but I'm going to do everything I can in righteousness, but I do not require deliverance. Doesn't matter if I'm delivered or not. I just want the opportunity to do things in righteousness. I don't care if this situation takes me or not. That's what my heart changed into. In other words, it was more servitude. I wasn't looking for anything back at that moment, right? Having gone through so much, being at the bottom of the barrel, I wasn't looking to get back on top anywhere. Because at that moment, I said, wait a minute, I don't deserve to even be free of this. Because I have not exhausted everything I know how to do in righteousness. Those things you know how to do, I just didn't do them. And so at that point, my heart changed. I was more determined to obey the Lord than at any other time in my life. And when that happened, when I was determined to obey the Lord, I began the process of obeying the Lord in the crisis, to the point where I didn't care about the crisis. I cared about obeying the Lord in every aspect of my life. And the crisis was, it was a full storm, everybody. Now imagine this, a full storm that once had me severely in the dumps, depressed, ready to just get to end it all, right? It just totally changed. I wasn't concerned about the storm. I was concerned about my servitude, because in those only at the height of the storm, at my lowest point, did I realize, and it really hit me, I was not doing what I knew how to do. And it'd be easy. It'd be better if it were, if I didn't do something I didn't know how to do, but I knew how to do things and I wasn't doing it according to righteousness. And so it became very concerning to me that I start doing things in righteousness. At that moment, I didn't care about the storm. I said, Lord, I don't require to be delivered, but I need to do this, be obedient doing this, because I haven't been doing that. The only thing, ladies and gentlemen, that brought that type heart out was that storm. If I had never gone through that moment, I would have never come to that realization. And to this very day, everything I do would be fake as fake can be. everything. It would have been based upon fakeness, right? Upon absolute fakeness. But that's not what happened. And the Lord had me in this spot, and thus began my walk of obedience, right? And it wasn't even perfect. See, I'm not one of those people who say, well, I didn't know I did. I'm aware of everything I do. I can tell you right now, I do some pretty stupid things. I'm aware of every single thing I do. In that moment, though, at the height of this storm, my heart changed. Without that storm, there'd be no heart change. My heart would not have changed. And even after that, it was months after that heart change, that's when I broke out in a fit of thanks, because it hit me, wait a minute, without the storm, there would be no change. There'd be no way in the world. I would have thought that everything had to align itself for me to get to that point in the first place, that realization, to actually see it. It was like everything external for me was wiped out. Everything became hopeless, and to the point where I could only see and examine my own heart. When I did, I said, well, this isn't aligned with anything at all. Thus, a change took place, and I reflected upon that, began to celebrate. Now, here's the funny thing that happened. Without me even being aware of it, the situation had changed so much. There was no more storm. There was no storm. And in fact, it didn't matter if a storm had come or not. And that storm was so severe that all the other storms that ever came were nothing. You ever see a kid is starting a storm really bad? Everybody knows it, right? The meteorologist, they know about it. So they're going in, they're taking cover. Everybody who knows about that storm and what it can do, they run and take cover. But there's always someone who doesn't know anything about the storm. They're just piddling away at something outside because they don't know about the severity of the storm, right? And because they don't know, they don't take precautions. Well, I became like that person, knowing the severity of the storms that could come. I just keep going in the same direction. The storm no longer altered my path, is what I'm saying. All before that time, a storm would alter my path. I'd see a storm coming. I say, oop, can't go that direction because a storm is coming. I have to stop this and prepare this and get this ready, right? But then came a point when a storm could not alter my path. A strong storm coming? Oh, well, I've been through worse. Let me stay on the path. And sure enough, I'd walk right through that storm. I would see the storm form. I wouldn't do anything to stop the storm. But I began to learn in the storm things that there's a wealth of knowledge in a storm. It's almost like protected knowledge. And the reason why is because the only time you can acquire that knowledge is in the middle of a storm. It would be like hiding a treasure in the middle of a tornado. Now, everybody knows a tornado is dangerous, so they're certainly going to run away from it, right? Except the person who knows a treasure is in the middle of the tornado. So guess where they're going? Right in the middle of that storm. If it comes, they see it as a blessing. Nobody else does because they don't know about what's in the middle of the storm, right? So it's almost like the Lord set things up in this way. In the middle of a storm, the great treasure, a treasure that hardly anybody ever finds. But to those who find that treasure, they begin to treasure every single storm that comes. They don't see storms the same way anymore. They don't perceive them the same way anymore. Their feelings are no longer sent to a bit of nothingness when a storm comes, but they kind of start looking for opportunity. So they begin to see and to capture things other people cannot, because most people run away from a storm. And when you know what, the Lord's trials and tribulations are the exact same way. The only way to glory in tribulation is to know what that tribulation is doing. Now, we have a general definition in the Bible that we should glory in tribulation, knowing what it's working. Then it names all these attributes. But to a person who's actually found that treasure in the middle of a storm, those are the ones who have the heart change. This heart change comes no other way. It takes a severe storm to actually see some things the Lord shows you. You can't see it outside of a storm. So then most people have had an opportunity for a specific type storm. It's going to sound weird, but you've had an opportunity for a certain type storm over and over again. The problem is every time the storm forms, You say, hey, I got to get out of here. You do everything to stop the storm, not knowing what's about to happen. And there's no way anybody can convey to you the wealth of treasure on the inside of that storm. They can tell you all day, but you still won't perceive it until you're caught in the middle of the storm. And then when you get in the middle of the storm, you're going to start seeing things differently. You're going to reevaluate your entire life. You're going to go through a series of emotional upsets you've never gone through before until the Lord begins to speak and to communicate with you, and then you begin to realize something. Some things about yourself you can do at no other time. When that happens, when this storm produces in you what it is meant to produce, you're not going to have to worry about storms. In fact, you're not going to, that won't even be your focus. You're going to another level of things. And again, it took a storm for me to realize, to not care about the storm at all, to really begin to change within myself, because I could not recognize what I was doing until the storm came and it wiped everything out. When it wiped everything out, the only thing left to focus on was the state of me. And when I did that self-reflection, that's when I realized. That's when I realized I wasn't doing. I just was not doing everything I knew to do in obedience with the Lord. I was, haphazardly approaching certain things. It just wasn't right. And if that storm hadn't come, right, my persistence in the Word, my persistence in keeping faith in certain things, it just wouldn't be there. I would have no strength, right? No strength, which would have made me a hypocrite. And the Lord does not want us to be hypocrites. But if we talk about a subject, he desires us to be qualified behind that subject. Unmovable in faith, right? That's what that storm produced. It's what they always produce. But it takes possibly a few of them to find it in the first place, because it takes a lot for us to self-reflect. By the way, if nothing is going wrong in your life, why would you examine yourself in the first place? Think about it. You're not going to examine yourself when everything is going right. You're going to assume that you're doing things right. You're going to say, well, hey, this way works for me. No need to examine myself. Then you'll begin to look at everybody else with weird eyes, right? Now, I'll give you this small, little, tiny, hidden thing. You ready? I never look at people in judgment, and there's a reason for that. Now, before the storm hit, I would look at everybody and I would notice things about them, right? You notice things, and you have this, you're like, you want to go tell somebody else, hey, that person's messed up, or this person is not doing this, and that person doesn't do that, this person doesn't, one of those type people. When this storm hit, the self-reflection was so great that the Lord also showed me something else. All that talk I was doing, this identification of other people, pointing out their flaws and everything else, it was almost like a protection mechanism the flesh has to hide its own frailties and vulnerabilities, right? So everything I pointed out, somebody else I had knowledge of and would easily point that out so long as the attention was not on my own flaws, on my own things that I was not quite efficient in. But when this storm hit, something else happened. All my burdens left. You know why? Because what you see is what you got. You know how we act like one person all the time? We kind of put on this act. We become whatever we think somebody else wants to see. That's what we become. And I used to be so good at that, right? Until I got to the point where I was just totally worn down. Anybody ever do that? Some people are held bondage, but they're held like a prison. This is their prison. Every day they wake up, they have to become somebody else to be accepted by those around them. Now, you can be proficient at that, at this character building type thing, right? But what this storm did was the storm relieved me of that burden, right? Because there were certain things that were things I would do that were just disingenuous. It wasn't me. It was me being somebody else for the sake of somebody else, right? What we think we have to do to fit in and this, that, and the other, all that stopped. All of it did. Every single last bit of it did. Right? And the reason it did was because upon self-reflection, not only did I see what I was not doing for the Lord that I knew how to do, not only did I see that I was not obedient in certain areas the Lord called me to be obedient in, but I also saw how I was just being of no benefit to anybody else by becoming someone I am not, by showing them this individual that never existed, somebody I created, right? For the sake of environment or whatever the case is. Kind of like what they do in Hollywood. What they do, in fact, what they do in the corporate world. They do the same thing. When you get a job, you'll do and say anything to get that job in a lot of cases. People will become whatever they think you need to become to get that job. It is the strangest thing how willing we are to change ourselves for the sake of advantage. And all that died. To do anything so I could get ahead, it died. It became useless. The storm brought out so much, folks. So what I'm telling you now is don't dodge the storm. Just like that destroyer, which came in Egypt. This was like a storm. All storms purge. You know that? They purge. They expose vulnerabilities. They cause us to follow instruction. Do you know that? They make us reevaluate who we are and what we've been doing. They take us off this pedestal of knowing everything and doing everything into a realm we know nothing about. We develop great insecurities because the place is uncomfortable, but in that we start to examine ourselves in a way that we wouldn't do any other time. And in those moments of clarity are given to each of us to make changes, right? To do things we wouldn't ordinarily do. Burdens are taken away because often storms come, things start collapsing that we once thought would not collapse. And when they collapse, why rebuild it? It wasn't a genuine structure in the first place, so why try to put it back up again? You know, in life, when something you're doing just totally falls apart, right? But in putting it together, you did so for some selfish reason. Why put that thing back up again when you can then redo your entire foundation in holiness and begin to build upon that? Since you lost the fake structure that was up anyway, why not build a real establishment, right? Why not build something real? So then storms bring an opportunity that nothing else yields. That is the closeness of the Messiah to you. That is a true salvation point. That is a storm of love itself, not a storm of cruelty, storm of love, because only in those storms does change come. And of all the people I've talked to, their biggest change came during their biggest crisis. A crisis in a Christian's life brings about change, real change, right? And there are certain things in our lives we have no power to change. We don't have a mind to alter. We don't know the path to take. But those hard times, they yield it. They yield things that no other time can give us. If we grab hold of that, then once you perceive it, right? Once you perceive it, you'll be totally blessed by it. A storm is in fact a blessing beyond belief. Every storm has a treasure in it. Every single storm has a treasure in it. All too often we tell the Lord we don't want the storm. But the devil didn't send it. Your Father in heaven did. When it comes to trials and tribulations, Satan cannot orchestrate a trial for you. Your Father in heaven does that. Satan is not in that area of life, ironically. Isn't that funny? So when things transpire in your life, that's not Satan, that's your Father. Your Father's the one that promised you trials and tribulations. He made a promise to you that you would have them. He keeps that promise, doesn't he? So these things that happen in your life, you got to be careful not to attribute certain things to the devil. The devil may be inside the trial, but he did not orchestrate the trial. Satan takes advantage of you when you're down, when you're weak. That's what he looks for. But guess what? He's also used, because you're a Christian, as a catalyst. Your absolute and total deliverance. Everything in God's creation exists to serve the will of God. And the will of God is that you be fully delivered. Think about that. Satan's your adversary, yes, but he has no power to stop what the Lord is doing in your life. Your Father in heaven has orchestrated these things. It is beyond your comprehension why the storm comes in the first place, just like in real world weather. Somebody would say, well, why in the world would the Lord ever allow man to die in a storm? Because we're afraid of death. We keep seeing death as death, and death is not death. That's not what death is. Death is a transition. We only see the part where people are no longer among the living. That's what we don't see the truth of it. The truth of it is when a person passes from this world into oblivion. They're not in oblivion. They're not. They have finished their race. It doesn't matter how it happens. They pass from this world, right? They have been born. The ones who are stuck alive here, we're the ones still in the womb. We're not out of the oven. We're like cupcakes and we're not finished yet. The timer didn't go off yet, right? We're still cooking. And on occasion, somebody opens the oven door. It just says, oh, they're not done yet. Back in the fire. That's what happens to us. Trials and tribulations. We gain comprehension because if I tell you something, if God had given us the ability to destroy ourselves totally, most of us would have done so already. You know and I know. You know and I know that we have hit close to that point, but we know it's wrong. And that's the true reason why we have not done it. Isn't that funny? That's the exact reason we have not passed from this world by our own hands. It's because we know that's wrong. We know it's wrong. The Lord is delivering us. Never forget it. Try not to forget it. He's delivering us. He knows exactly what he's doing. He knows exactly what he's doing. We're the ones who don't have a clue. We think we know. But what we ought to do, simply submit, simply realize that we don't know. Never try to act like we know, because we don't. We know what we're told, right? That's what we know. But in truth, we don't know. We're learning along the way. You're covered by the blood, by the way, just so you know. So when things like the destroyer, all this stuff is coming back again. Another storm, isn't it? But you're covered. You're being prepared right now. They were told. They were told the instruction of what to do to put the blood on their door so that they would be protected, that it would stand as a sign between them and the living God, that they were not to be destroyed. Well, guess what? Your whole life, you're being given instruction so that you will be sealed upon the coming of the Lord. Because even that day is confusing to a person. That's why they continue to think that Jesus is coming 2, 3, 4 times. No, he isn't. He's not coming 2, 3, 4 times. He comes once. But in that same moment, to a believer, it is that day of deliverance, right? It is that graduation day to a believer. But to a non-believer, it's that day of destruction. So he's coming as light for some, as utter destruction for others in the same moment of time. We will perceive it differently. It'd be like this. If you were in a house and you had a sister or brother in that house, right? Now, your sister or brother got caught doing something just extremely nasty, right? Bad, just very bad. And the dad is coming home, right? But you had straight A's on your report card. The teacher had informed your parents of something extraordinary you did, which was good. You're going to come home smiling. You can't wait until dad gets home. But your sibling is terrified because dad is coming home. You guys understand? So both you guys are sitting there. One is terrified because of what they did, and the other is just they're just overjoyed. They can't wait until dad comes. Both of them did something. And one was good, one was bad. The dad is coming home once, not 2 or 3 times, but both expect 2 different things. That's how the Lord is coming. And all this time, he's told us to prepare yourselves for his arrival because he is coming. And he will send things before his arrival that will mark his coming, that will consume people, that will hurt people, that will destroy things. And so he's telling us, hey, get yourselves ready. So for us, it's one of those moments where when you're doing everything you know how to do, right? You're excited. But to the folks who have sidestepped everything, that's a horrifying thought. They don't want to believe it. They don't want to talk about it. And we do the same thing when we don't want to believe something. I don't want to talk about that. That just ruins the whole thing. What we're trying to do is build kingdoms. That's for the earthly people, right? We want, money. We're greedy. We want, immoral stuff all over the place. We don't want to hear about Christ coming back. They don't, because it means they're doomed, right? But for us, we can't wait. But he's coming back once. It's going to be experienced different ways. Remember that. And before that, the destroyer comes. And before that, some things happen. Keep that in mind, because in Exodus, these people, they witnessed the same thing. And they were caught in the middle. So they learned in the storm about these things. But there's still yet lessons to learn. Just remember where you are, right? Who your Lord and Savior is. And that your story, your expectation of the Lord is very different from one who'd be bound in darkness. You're children of the light. So because you have that title, then be children of the light. Become that. And remember, the storms that come in your life are for you, not against you. They're for you. When things happen in your life, they are for you, not against you. Why? Because you believe upon the name of the Lord and Savior Jesus Christ. That's why. Because you actually believe. So then things in your life transpire differently than for the one who hates Christ Jesus or who hates the Bible and all this stuff, right? It's very different. Even in that respect, it is still based upon that same principle of two siblings waiting for dad. One is horrified, the other one's happy. The other one can't wait. One is mortified. They're going to have different responses when he hits the door, right? Remember that. Same thing is going on now. Let me continue playing. This is chapter 12, midway. I'm going to finish playing this. Here it goes.
Worshipped. And the children of Israel went away, and did, as the Lord had commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. And it came to pass that at midnight the Lord smote all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, from the firstborn of Pharaoh that sat on his throne unto the firstborn of the captive that was in the dungeon, and all the firstborn of cattle. And Pharaoh rose up in the night, he and all his servants and all the Egyptians. And there was a great cry in Egypt. There was not a house where there was not one dead. And he called for Moses and Aaron by night, and said, Rise up, and get you forth from among my people, both ye and the children of Israel, and go, serve the Lord, as ye have said. Also take your flocks and your herds, as ye have said, and be gone, and bless me also. And the Egyptians were urgent upon the people, that they might send them out of the land in haste. For they said, We be all dead men. The people took their dough before it was leavened, their kneading troughs being bound up in their clothes upon their shoulders. And the children of Israel did according to the word of Moses. And they borrowed of the Egyptians jewels of silver, and jewels of gold and raiment. The Lord gave the people favor in the sight of the Egyptians, so that they lent unto them such things as they required, and they spoiled the Egyptians. And the children of Israel journeyed from Ramses to Succoth, about 600,000 on foot, that were men, beside children. And a mixed multitude went up also with them, and flocks and herds, even very much cattle. They baked unleavened cakes of the dough which they brought forth out of Egypt. But it was not leavened, because they were thrust out of Egypt, and could not tarry, neither had they prepared for themselves any victual. Now the sojourning of the children of Israel, who dwelt in Egypt, was 430 years. It came to pass, at the end of the 430 years, even the selfsame day it came to pass, that all the hosts of the Lord went out from the land of Egypt. It is a night to be much observed unto the Lord for bringing them out from the land of Egypt. It is that night of the Lord to be observed of all the children of Israel, in their generations. And the Lord said unto Moses and Aaron, This is the ordinance of the Passover. There shall no stranger eat thereof. Every man's servant that is bought for money, when thou hast circumcised him, then shall he eat thereof. A foreigner and an hired servant shall not eat thereof. In one house shall it be eaten. Thou shalt not carry forth aught of the flesh abroad out of the house, neither shall ye break a bone thereof. All the congregation of Israel shall keep it. And when a stranger shall sojourn with thee, and will keep the Passover to the Lord, let all his males be circumcised, and then let him come near and keep it. And he shall be as one that is born in the land. For no uncircumcised person shall eat thereof. One law shall be to him that is homeborn, and unto the stranger that sojourneth among you. Thus did all the children of Israel. As the Lord commanded Moses and Aaron, so did they. It came to pass the selfsame day, that the Lord did bring the children of Israel out of the land of Egypt by their armies. Exodus 13. The Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Sanctify unto me all the firstborn, whatsoever openeth the womb among the children of Israel, both of man and of beast, it is mine. And Moses said unto the people, Remember this day in which ye came out from Egypt, out of the house of bondage, for by strength of hand the Lord brought you out from this place. There shall no leavened bread be eaten. This day came ye out in the month Abib. And it shall be, when the Lord shall bring thee into the land of the Canaanites, and the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which he sware unto thy fathers to give thee, a land flowing with milk and honey, that thou shalt keep this service in this month. 7 days thou shalt eat unleavened bread, and in the 7th day shall be a feast to the Lord. Unleavened bread shall be eaten 7 days, and there shall no leavened bread be seen with thee. Neither shall there be leaven seen with thee in all thy quarters. And thou shalt show thy son in that day, saying, This is done, because of that which the Lord did unto me, when I came forth out of Egypt. And it shall be for a sign unto thee upon thine hand, and for a memorial between thine eyes, that the Lord's law may be in thy mouth. For with a strong hand hath the Lord brought thee out of Egypt. Thou shalt therefore keep this ordinance in his season from year to year. And it shall be, when the Lord shall bring thee into the land of the Canaanites, as he sware unto thee and to thy fathers, and shall give it thee, that thou shalt set apart unto the Lord all that openeth the matrix, and every firstling that cometh of a beast which thou hast, males shall be the Lord's. And every firstling of an ass thou shalt redeem with a lamb, and if thou wilt not redeem it, then thou shalt break his neck. And all the firstborn of man among thy children shalt thou redeem. And it shall be, when thy son asketh thee in time to come, saying, What is this? That thou shalt say unto him, By strength of hand the Lord brought us out from Egypt, from the house of bondage. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh would hardly let us go, the Lord slew all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. For I sacrifice to the Lord all that openeth the matrix, being males, but all the firstborn of my children I redeem. It shall be for a token upon thine hand, and for frontlets between thine eyes, for by strength of hand the Lord brought us forth out of Egypt. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh had let the people go, that God led them not through the way of the land of the Philistines, although that was near, for God said, Lest peradventure the people repent when they see war, and they return to Egypt. But God led the people about through the way of the wilderness of the Red Sea. And the children of Israel went up harnessed out of the land of Egypt. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him. He had straitly sworn the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry up my bones away hence with you. They took their journey from Succoth, and encamped in Etham, in the edge of the wilderness. And the Lord went before them by day in a pillar of a cloud, to lead them the way, and by night in a pillar of fire, give them light, to go by day and night. He took not away the pillar of the cloud by day, nor the pillar of fire by night, from before the people. Exodus 14. And the Lord spake unto Moses, saying, Speak unto the children of Israel, that they turn and encamp before Pi-hahiroth, between Migdal and the sea, over against Baal-zephon. Before it shall ye encamp by the sea. For Pharaoh will say of the children of Israel, They are entangled in the land, the wilderness hath shut them in. And I will harden Pharaoh's heart, that he shall follow after them, and I will be honored upon Pharaoh, and upon all his host, that the Egyptians may know that I am the Lord. And they did so. And it was told the king of Egypt that the people fled, and the heart of Pharaoh and of his servants was turned against the people, and they said, Why have we done this, that we have let Israel go from serving us? And he made ready his chariot, and took his people with him. He took 600 chosen chariots, and all the chariots of Egypt, and captains over every one of them. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh king of Egypt, and he pursued after the children of Israel. And the children of Israel went out with an high hand. The Egyptians pursued after them, all the horses and chariots of Pharaoh, and his horsemen and his army, and overtook them encamping by the sea, beside Pi-hahiroth, before Baal-zephon. And when Pharaoh drew nigh, the children of Israel lifted up their eyes, and behold, the Egyptians marched after them, and they were sore afraid. And the children of Israel cried out unto the Lord, and they said unto Moses, Because there were no graves in Egypt, hast thou taken us away to die in the wilderness? Wherefore hast thou dealt thus with us, to carry us forth out of Egypt? Is not this the word that we did tell thee in Egypt, saying, Let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? For it had been better for us to serve the Egyptians, than that we should die in the wilderness. And Moses said unto the people, Fear ye not, stand still, and see the salvation of the Lord, which he will show to you today. For the Egyptians whom ye have seen today, ye shall see them again no more forever. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. And the Lord said unto Moses, Wherefore criest thou unto me? Speak unto the children of Israel, that they go forward. Lift thou up thy rod, and stretch out thine hand over the sea, and divide it. And the children of Israel shall go on dry ground through the midst of the sea. And I, behold, I will harden the hearts of the Egyptians, and they shall follow them. And I will get me honor upon Pharaoh, and upon all his host, upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. The Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I have gotten me honor upon Pharaoh, upon his chariots, and upon his horsemen. And the angel of God, which went before the camp of Israel, removed, and went behind them. And the pillar of the cloud went from before their face, and stood behind them. And it came between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel. And it was a cloud and darkness to them, but it gave light by night to these, so that the one came not near the other all the night. And Moses stretched out his hand over the sea, and the Lord caused the sea to go back by a strong east wind all that night, and made the sea dry land, and the waters were divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea upon the dry ground, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. And the Egyptians pursued, and went in after them to the midst of the sea, even all Pharaoh's horses, his chariots, and his horsemen. And it came to pass that in the morning watch the Lord looked unto the host of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and of the cloud, and troubled the host of the Egyptians, and took off their chariot wheels, that they drave them heavily, so that the Egyptians said, Let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fighteth for them against the Egyptians. And the Lord said unto Moses, Stretch out thine hand over the sea, that the waters may come again upon the Egyptians, upon their chariots, and upon their horsemen. Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the sea returned to his strength when the morning appeared, and the Egyptians fled against it. And the Lord overthrew the Egyptians in the midst of the sea. And the waters returned and covered the chariots, and the horsemen, and all the host of Pharaoh that came into the sea after them. There remained not so much as one of them. But the children of Israel walked upon dry land in the midst of the sea, and the waters were a wall unto them on their right hand and on their left. Thus the Lord saved Israel that day out of the hand of the Egyptians, and Israel saw the Egyptians dead upon the seashore. And Israel saw that great work which the Lord did upon the Egyptians, and the people feared the Lord, and believed the Lord and his servant Moses. Exodus 15. Then sang Moses and the children of Israel this song unto the Lord, and spake, saying, I will sing unto the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea. The Lord is my strength and song, and he is become my salvation. He is my God, and I will prepare him an habitation, my father's God, and I will exalt him. The Lord is a man of war, the Lord is his name. Pharaoh's chariots and his host hath he cast into the sea. His chosen captains also are drowned in the Red Sea. The depths have covered them, they sank into the bottom as a stone. Thy right hand, O Lord, is become glorious in power. Thy right hand, O Lord, hath dashed in pieces the enemy. And in the greatness of thine excellency thou hast overthrown them that rose up against thee. Thou sentest forth thy wrath, which consumed them as stubble. And with the blast of thy nostrils the waters were gathered together. The floods stood upright as an heap, and the depths were congealed in the heart of the sea. The enemy said, I will pursue, I will overtake, I will divide the spoil. My lust shall be satisfied upon them. I will draw my sword, my hand shall destroy them. Thou didst blow with thy wind, the sea covered them. They sank as lead in the mighty waters. Who is like unto thee, O Lord, among the gods? Who is like thee, glorious in holiness, fearful in praises, doing wonders? Thou stretchest out thy right hand, the earth swallowed them. Thou in thy mercy hast led forth the people which thou hast redeemed. Thou hast guided them in thy strength unto thy holy habitation. The people shall hear and be afraid. Sorrow shall take hold on the inhabitants of Palestina. And the dukes of Edom shall be amazed. The mighty men of Moab, trembling, shall take hold upon them. All the inhabitants of Canaan shall melt away. Fear and dread shall fall upon them. By the greatness of thine arm they shall be as still as a stone, till thy people pass over, O Lord, till the people pass over, which thou hast purchased. Thou shalt bring them in, and plant them in the mountain of thine inheritance, in the place, O Lord, which thou hast made for thee to dwell in the sanctuary, O Lord, which thy hands have established. Lord shall reign for ever and ever. For the horse of Pharaoh went in with his chariots and with his horsemen into the sea, and the Lord brought again the waters of the sea upon them. But the children of Israel went on dry land in the midst of the sea. And Miriam the prophetess, the sister of Aaron, took a timbrel in her hand, and all the women went out after her with timbrels and with dances. And Miriam answered them, Sing ye to the Lord, for he hath triumphed gloriously. The horse and his rider hath he thrown into the sea. So Moses brought Israel from the Red Sea, and they went out into the wilderness of Shur. And they went 3 days in the wilderness, and found no water. And when they came to Marah, they could not drink of the waters of Marah, for they were bitter. Therefore the name of it was called Marah. And the people murmured against Moses, saying, What shall we drink? And he cried unto the Lord, and the Lord showed him a tree, which when he had cast into the waters were made sweet. There he made for them a statute and an ordinance, and there he proved them, and said, If thou wilt diligently hearken to the voice of the Lord thy God, and wilt do that which is right in his sight, and wilt give ear to his commandments, and keep all his statutes, I will put none of these diseases upon thee, which I have brought upon the Egyptians, for I am the Lord that healeth thee. And they came to Elim, where were 12 wells of water, and 70 palm trees, and they encamped there by the waters.
Okay, everybody, I'm back again, and guess what? There's so much to discuss regarding Exodus, as you can see, if you were listening along, and man's freedom, right? Once being enslaved in Egypt, many things are going through their minds. They don't know quite what to make of their own deliverance. But this brings up the question of the generations. Could a generation before them who was in bondage, could they have been delivered? And what was happening? There's an answer to that question. Number one, the generations that came before them could not be delivered. Did you know that? They couldn't. God already gave us why he did not deliver them, why he didn't come in the generation prior to them. Well, for two reasons, actually. But one of them was most notable. When they were put into bondage in the first place, they had resistance within them. And that resistance stayed many generations until they got to the point where the people were somewhat complacent, right? Fully integrated into Egyptian culture, still being a people, right? Still oppressed, but they were integrated to the point where they found comfort in their captivity. Much like people today, just as Jesus and the apostles discussed the mindset of us today, or that we would have, how complacent they were with their bondage, to the point where they made many compromises. When deliverance came, it was a good thought to them, right? Deliverance sounded good, but it was very foreign to them. And what had actually happened when they found out with deliverance, you're going to forego the comforts of your bondage, they became nervous, right? If you've ever spoken to a person who's been a prisoner, or if you've been one yourselves, you know what it's like to go from being in captivity, but having everything provided to you, and then being let loose from that captivity and having nothing provided to you. It can be scary. A lot of people who are released from bondage are actually frightened when they come out into the world, away from all those provisions, because they have to do everything themselves. And sure enough, true to form, Egypt, when the children of Israel were delivered from Egypt, they became nervous because they didn't have supplies. They could not see supplies right in front of their faces, and so they were nervous. They were nervous. Actually, they were more than nervous. They began to contemplate within themselves, hey, let's go back to Egypt, right? Let's go back into bondage. Let's go. You know, it was easier there. We had a provision. We had everything there, which lets us know that they had gotten so complacent in their own bondage, right? That deliverance was it was something they thought of, but likely something they couldn't quite conceive of. And in their actions in the wilderness, that really showed what they were not used to. Now, this is important because how many of you have asked God for deliverance? How many? How many have asked God for deliverance, said, Lord, deliver me? Let me bring you to a point here. We ask God for deliverance. I'm telling you now, when deliverance comes, right? If God doesn't sit down and tell us, hey, this is deliverance, we end up rejecting what we ask for. One of the first things you had to give up when being delivered are your conveniences you once had in bondage. So without those conveniences, once those conveniences are broken or upset, people get nervous. They begin to weigh the scales, and all of a sudden they say, well, you know, it was kind of less stressful in bondage. Do you guys not know the same thing is happening right now? I'll say this spiritually. God has probably moved upon half of you to kind of shift from where you are. But because of your conveniences, you don't want that message. You don't want a message that would tell you to get up and go. In fact, there are lots of people in lots of places that have had an internal warning that they must get up and go from where they are. But they're not listening because they don't want to lose, the conveniences. They don't know another place. They've been embedded where they are for so long, despite the conditions, despite what they see around them. They don't want to go. The problem is there's a nagging voice inside that has told them, you're going to have to abandon this place and go somewhere else. They already know this internally. No one has told them. No one has confirmed it. No one has denied it. But they know internally they must leave wherever they are. They have been given that internal call internally to get up and go, that they're going to have to leave the place. And so, but they're so comfortable there, they don't want to hear it. And all too often we get to the point where we are forced out of where we are, right? I mean, literally forced out. Watch this summer come along. Now, God has given people this unction of what to do. He gives you this internal knowing that one day you're going to have to, you have to get up and go somewhere else. But a lot of people are going to be forced out from where they are because they will not leave on their own. And they're going to think it's this horrible, bad thing, but I'm telling you it's not. The greater signs of deliverance, you could say, are on the way. They're not here yet. They're by no means here, but they're coming. You know, kind of why Europe is so involved well, they're spending money left and right in conjunction with JPL, NASA. Even Lockheed is involved. Lockheed has recently gotten involved in a few things they've never been involved with, likely because they know what's certain alterations that are coming. But the people don't. The people think they know, but they don't. They're going to miss it by, trust me. What's forming is going to be so missed and so shocking, right? It's going to cause people to say, why didn't I see that sooner? Well, I'll give you the answer to that now. Because people today, they don't listen to spiritual things. They want things bound in a type logic, which is leading them in the wrong direction. But they're going to find that out painfully this summer. And a lot of people are going to be forced out from where they are. All because the Lord is about to perform. And before he performs, he always takes his children and gets them out of certain places. If he condemned a place, he didn't want you near that place. If he condemned it, he didn't want you near. But Satan will make it to where you are quite cozy there, right? He'll do it. But don't worry, the Lord will uproot quite a few people in quite a few places. Most people, what I'm saying is most people are not, they're not ready for deliverance. They will ask for it, they will cry to get it, but they're not ready for it. They're not ready. One of the ways to get ready for full deliverance is to start breaking these personal attachments to stuff. Stuff will keep you where you are. But if you have no stuff, you're free to move wherever you need to go. I give everybody a challenge. Never be in a position where you have to stay somewhere and guard your stuff. Never be in that position. That can actually be your undoing. Never be in that position. I'm trying to save you some heartache. Always be ready to sever from everything in your immediate vicinity, right? Because have you guys ever looked at the prospect of Revelation? You look in Revelation, you see it in James, you certainly see it, and you see the same thing in Jude. You see it in Romans, you see it in Hebrews, you certainly see it forming in Acts, that this fight at the end regarding the end times is almost a materialistic war. One of the hidden weapons Satan has is so effective is materialism. Materialism. And did you notice when Jesus spoke about, he said, man cannot serve two masters. He's going to love one and hate the other, cling to one, right, despise the other. And then he said, man cannot serve two masters. Man cannot serve both God and mammon, right? So he compared servitude to God as being resisted, or the opposite of that being servitude to mammon. But do you guys know what mammon is tied to? It's an ancient prophecy, something that was known by the Jews for a long time, that in these end times, a spirit of greed, right, of just greed. This angel has a name. It's the story is the rise of the seven, I believe it is. And these seven angels, these bad angels, seven bad angels, would actually begin to rise and to infiltrate the hearts of mankind until they start having everybody involved in materialism. And this same materialism is what people will have to go to war with to break their grip on materialism. They're going to have to really hunker down into Christ simply to break that, because what they don't know is there are seven spirits over a person's greed, causing them to want more. They create a desire, almost like a thirst to buy something new. Anybody ever sit there and you don't have to answer this because it's incriminating if you do. But I know for a fact about these seven spirits. These seven spirits, they cause, well, let me name you one of the symptoms. You're sitting there, right? You start feeling a weird way, like nothing is being accomplished. You're not doing anything new. Like this deadness is coming over you. And so what you do is you go buy something to take that feeling away. You don't have to admit that, but that's what happens. And then a lot of people have developed online buying habits. They're not satisfied until they purchase something. They may not even need the thing, but they go and buy it anyway, right? That is part of that is a spirit that people are going to have to contend with. This spirit is so incredibly strong. It has 7 behind it, right? 7 that are in operation all over the place. And there were places mentioned in the old times, like the New Land. I would say that's America. It was said to be the New Land, of which this thing would really be born and take hold. And through it would spread throughout the world, right? With its greed, and the whole basis of the economy and everything else is established based upon what? Gold and silver, just as that prophecy said. So, this thing is, it's a real battle. But it would take a person. It will take a person fasting, lots of prayer to break themselves from these materialistic holds, right, on the world. They would have to break themselves from it. Because security, most people's security is right now in money. They can talk about the Holy Spirit all day, but if they don't have a dime, they don't feel secure. And the only way they feel secure is to know that they have money. And when they're missing money, they have no security. They're upset. They're emotionally compromised. And all this, that, and the other, right? It's a true thing that we face. Because what would happen? That's why people are so frightened of a financial collapse. That's what you hear. Financial collapse, financial collapse, financial collapse. Men always communicate their greatest fear. Why would anybody fear a financial collapse if their Savior is Christ? Why? I'll tell you why. Because they know what it is to go hungry. They know what it is not to be able to pay their bills and to miss obligations, this, that, and the other. They know what it's like not to be empowered, and everybody around you is empowered. And that empowerment, of course, is the power to buy something. So most people have been in that area of lack 1 or 2 times where they actually become frightened of not having the power to feed their children, to pay for their light bill, whatever the case is. And it becomes a real issue. But they're still Christians. But so what Satan did was give an example of what happens when a person totally ignores money. Right? It's almost like a penalty. He reinforces the idea that you have to have it. That's what he wants you to believe, that you have to have it, right? Isn't it funny how God made man to live off nature, right? But man is frightened to live off nature. Do you know why? Because his brothers and his sisters, the majority of them, are not living off nature. So let me give you the key here. Although materialism is strong, right? It is strong. What's really going to get people, what really is going to bring this out, is when you hear more and more of people dying because they won't leave their stuff. For example, say you knew some calamity was headed towards a specific town. Somebody says, well, I can't leave this place. I've got all my physical Bitcoins, in my couch. So I'm going to sit here on my couch no matter what happens, and I'm going to guard my stuff. And that person dies. You'll hear that more and more about how people stayed to guard their stuff. You're going to hear that more and more. Just like that, you're going to hear it. You're going to hear it because people are sitting, and when they went and they bought, now I hate to say this, but when people go and get gold and silver and stock it up in a whole, room in their house, do they not realize what they're doing? Well, anyway, you stock up a bunch of gold, precious coins in a room of a house, you're going to be stuck to that particular place. How can you get up and go anywhere when half of what you believe in is stuck in one room and it's called gold and silver? That's why the Bible says they're going to cast the gold and silver into the streets. They're going to find out it's worthless to have. That's what they're going to find out. It's not going to help them with what's coming. Gold and silver is not going to help them. And while everybody's hollering a financial collapse, I submit to you, it's going to be a change in how money flows. That's what's going to happen in the Bible. I know a lot of people read the Bible and they interpret it, the one angel with the balances, as a financial collapse. I told you guys a long time, I have never seen that in there. What I do see is the establishment of a global economy, which is already established. Why? Because in that prophecy, in that seal, right, when that seal is opened, and I'm not going against anybody here, right, because I don't know what you guys listen to, but I did hear of somebody say that I heard quite a few. They actually believed that horse that had the scales, right, implied a financial collapse. So being the individual I was, being fresh, and I'm somewhat fresh and new to other people's opinion about the Word of God. I really am, because I did not study under anybody. I did not. I am, you could say I'm untouched in this field, which means there are no influences over me at all, right? But I go and read these seals, and I'm like, well, where did they get financial collapse from? Where does that come from? And so I went and read myself. I was trying to find it, how they would ever think that was financial collapse. And then I understood it, because some of the people were quoting somebody else as saying it was financial collapse, right? Even though when I read it, that's not what it said. It said a measure of wheat for a penny, right? And 3 measures of barley for a penny. Now, what I see by that is this, something very simple. And I'm a simple-minded individual. So here's what I see. These are the seals that Jesus opens. Nobody else does. Jesus does at the onset of Revelation. And he already told John the time is at hand. So personally, I believe that the first one is already broken. The second one is I believe the first one broke thousands of years ago. I do not believe the first one broke recently, right? To take peace away from the earth? Are you kidding? There's been no peace in the earth. Since Jesus sat at the right hand of the Father, all HE double hockey sticks broke out, right? So I believe that seal was open then. In fact, I believe that these seals have been opened over time. And when it comes down to this one, it says a measure of wheat for a penny, 3 measures of barley for a penny. See that thou hurt not the oil and the wine. I don't see a financial collapse. Here's what I see. Because it's a measure of wheat for a penny, 3 measures of barley for a penny, right? Now, the old world was like this. When you wanted to get corn or something like that, right? Say you wanted some wheat. You either had to have something to trade, right? Or you could go start a garden, right? You could grow it yourself or trade it. In this case, everything was for that penny. The penny representing money. And so everything, the barley and the wheat, right, cost a penny, which means everything is going to be traded based upon one type of structure, which is called, that's our common economy right now. You pay money to get stuff. And that's what I saw in this seal, that a time would come when all people would have to pay money for stuff. That's it. That's all I saw. Because back then, everybody did not pay money for stuff. And then when they specifically said penny, which is an idea, a penny was, every currency did not have a penny, right? So that lets me know everything was going to be on one consistent or one persistent system. Right now, in all the world, right? It's under one system. It's been under this one system for hundreds of years now. How could people believe? I hear people all the time say, well, it means a global economy. We already have a global economy. We already do, because every country uses money, and all their money is exchangeable. And that exchange, right, is that international standard of which everybody uses. And a penny particular at that time, a penny represents that someone has classified the currency. So it's not just some overnight currency. No, this is established currency. That's an economic system over the whole globe. So you can't trade. You cannot go somewhere and say, hey, I've got, 4 pigs, and I'll trade these 4 pigs for that couch. Nope. You got to go get you some money, don't you? You got to get some money. And then you have to go make a financial deal on a system that's worldwide. That's worldwide right now. That's it. That's all. That's all. It said a penny. Do you guys know that when you start looking back in the days of Rome, right? They were the ones that had the penny. Isn't it funny how the Roman system has been adopted 1,000 years ago as the global system? Did you guys know that? Right now, you guys may not know it, but Europe, America, all Western culture operates by a Roman, Grecian, Egyptian philosophy. That's what it is. And in fact, America, the Congress, the Senate, how government works is a Roman recreation. Do you guys know that? Europe, the same thing. All governments of the world, when they say Western culture, what they're really saying is a Roman culture, because that's what it is. That's why we have Roman representation in the Capitol right now. So it's a restructured system that's utilized worldwide. And when it comes to this seal, this is a standard for everybody. A standard. And it's a standard we use today. Everybody carries money. Everybody, right? So this is the introduction of that standard. And sure enough, during that time, because at that time, right, when man went through some pretty bad things, the monetary system kicked in after people, after mass death took place and the inquisitions took place and all this different types. They had religious rule everywhere, and then that was shut down. And so we went to one system, right? And largely, no matter where you're from, it's somewhat like a democratic system. It does not mean it's fair. It means it's modeled after Rome. So it's everywhere right now, everywhere, and everybody uses money. And now that monetary system is a full digital system. That system was finished 7 years ago. 7 years ago it was finished. I overheard a conversation, and hopefully nothing happens when I say this, but 7 years ago I overheard a conversation, and I heard a powerful person say these words. The standing issue, the standing problem, getting the people to reject the old system. That's the standard problem, because they only trust what they can touch, right? The new system, you don't touch anything. You don't touch it. And so right now, guess what? You know what people are doing? They've already gotten in the habit of not touching a thing. The majority of the people right now in Western culture do not use cash. They don't. They don't use cash at all. Zero. They don't use it. Most of the people who are gainfully employed, they're working all the time. They don't use cash. They don't use cash. It is cashless. In fact, the money distribution system has gone way down in the last 5 years. Way down. Way down. And so they hardly ever use it, which is why they've been taking dollars and quarters and stuff like that out of circulation, right? Another factor they wanted, and this is why I don't trust this. I'm going to go ahead and say it. I can say it, though. This gold and silver thing, right? I cannot help but to see what I saw so many years ago. I saw people all over the earth mining gold and silver and precious metals. Listen to me, because I never said this before publicly. I've said it to a few people. I'm going to say it one more time. Years ago, and it was incorporated in that one dream that's all written down from many, many years ago. I saw people all over the earth mining. I couldn't understand that part either. All of them. Everybody was mining. Everybody was dirty. Everybody was mining, and they had gold and silver. Everybody did. Oh, I truly understand the interpretation. Listen to me. Here's the interpretation. Right now in the world, everybody is mining. They're collecting gold and silver. Doesn't matter how they get it, they're getting it. Gold and silver all over the world. And when I saw people mining, I also saw some people come and get what everybody mined. People have gold and silver assets, especially in their homes when you can get the actual gold and silver, right? They're putting it wherever they put it. Doesn't matter where they put it. What they're doing is almost like they have put out these programs, right? And people are getting gold and silver, and they're putting it in expected places, right? In other words, it's topside. It's not hundreds of feet underneath the ground. It's topside. Well, the issue with that is with some of the satellites they have up there, you can see all precious metals on the surface of the earth. So they know exactly where it is. And it's almost just like that dream where the people went out and mined all the gold and silver of the earth, and they stored it away. And what these other bad folks were doing was causing the people to mine for them. So the people thought they were putting it up for themselves, when in fact they were mining it for this small group of people. See, they couldn't spend enough money to go in the earth to pay all these people to mine gold and silver for them. So what they did was it was almost like this competition they had. And everybody in the world in this dream, they were mining, they were dirty. Everybody was trying to get all the gold and silver. And when they got a bunch of gold and silver, they stored it, some in their homes, some in certain places. But the deal was they stored it in places where these other people knew exactly where it was. And they didn't have to spend money on mining the gold and silver. They tricked the people into doing it. And they went around and picked all of it up. They knew exactly where it was, and they picked all of it up because they tricked the people into mining all the gold and silver. Isn't that funny? But that's what happened in the dream. That was horrible, though. That was so horrible. Because I remember there were families that were counting on this gold and silver. They never got to spend a dime of it because this group of people came around confiscating all the gold and silver of the world. They tricked people. Again, they tricked people into mining it. And then they came and got it. They knew exactly where the people put it. And they came and got it. And they did not have to spend a dime on mining it. Isn't that something? Somebody says, what do they want with the gold and silver? Well, guess what? Here's what you may not know. Do you guys know that with supercomputing, right, and with artificial intelligence, gold is being consumed? Yes, I said consumed. That means gold, not for wires, right? During part of the process of processing some of this anti-gravity, gold is totally consumed. I mean consumed. Do you hear me? I mean, like eaten and consumed is consumed. So they have to take this gold in large measure to do certain processes, and it's consumed. And that means you don't get gold back. The gold is gone. They consume it. Silver is the basis for the circuitry of a lot of these systems, and they're already running low. They will, you know what, I perceive there will come a point because of electronics, because of technology, they're going to take all the platinum, all the gold, all the silver, palladium, all those precious metals. They're going to come and get it. They're going to have to come and get it because, especially gold, if these machines are consuming gold, they're going to keep feeding it no matter what. That's just how that is. And so I can see that happening. But I can also see where gold and silver is going to have a value in the tech world, not really in the financial world. Because right now they're going to swap everybody without them knowing. You know, I saw four banks had an advertisement. And these four banks were talking about Bitcoin. Do you guys know this? They were talking about Bitcoin. And they were talking about people getting their Bitcoin. They were like, hey, you can get your Bitcoin. And then I read the policies that just passed at the White House. And so what I'm telling you right now is they're going to swap the system right from underneath your feet. Right from underneath it. You know, today, for all you people who trade all this digital currency, a law begins today for digital currencies. Most people don't even know this, right? Some people did, because I believe it was somebody said, you know, Mike, when you start talking about Bitcoin, the price went all the way down. The price went down. I think it dropped like $30,000 or something like that in Bitcoin. Right. And that day I told everybody to go ahead and put some money in Bitcoin and then get it out. Right then it kind of froze because Bitcoin in about another, I guess, 6 days, there'll be no Bitcoins left. You guys do know that, right? One Bitcoin is about to be worth about $292,000. One Bitcoin right now is only worth $45,000. It's about to be worth $200-some thousand. I'll give it a month. In a month, it'll be worth that much money. I say that based on my experience with the back end of Bitcoin, not the coin itself, not the financial side, but the tech side of Bitcoin. I'm very familiar with, right? As I said before, I do not involve myself in those things. I just can't do that. That'll be a great compromise. Trust me, I could take little to nothing, take it straight to those markets and make some good money. But folks, I would compromise my entire soul, and I'm not doing that. That wouldn't work. But so I'm telling you right now what's about to happen, right? I'm just telling you. I'm telling you right now. I'm not your financial advisor, but I'm telling you right now. And somebody who, I can't mention this, but somebody said that they took and did exactly what I said. And that person in one day, because Bitcoin shot through the roof right after I said that, right? Before it went down, it shot straight through the roof. So whoever did that, whoever got Bitcoin, they got it's probably like, went from, what did it go from like, it went from, I believe they got like 10 or 11 grand off of that in about 6 hours, which is what it yielded. So that's just the way it works. And, yeah, it's about to happen again, though, because they're flushing out people out of the currency system, even in the markets. I wouldn't believe anything they're saying on television. But I'm going to tell you right now, what they're doing is flushing out people they believe have no right to be in the markets in the first place. When a price goes high in the markets, that's normally when people start throwing their money in there, right? Well, those people that throw in their money also take it out at a whim. And they'll go ahead and take the penalty because they get scared and get out. Well, they want those people gone. So what they do is they drive the price real low. And so it scares everybody. And people start pulling their, people who aren't serious or devoted to the markets pull their money out. The price goes way down, right? And then by that time, everybody who's not serious would give up on the markets. In the meanwhile, you have a slew of other people who put their money into the markets when it gets low. And when it sure enough, they're called bears. They stop fighting the market. They let loose and the price goes up and levels off again. But this time when it levels off, people double their money. I'm telling you how they do. That system, in my opinion, is a fixed system. All of them are fixed systems. They run off algorithms. That algorithm can be replicated, easily, pretty easily. Forget about the Fibonacci and all these things that people think they work by theorized. They only match that formula from time to time by what they're doing is that they're driving the results to that formula to give people hope in the research and certain wave pattern recognition, right? But don't believe that stuff, because that's a fixed system. That is a fixed system, pure and simple. That's a fixed system, and this cryptocurrency thing, right, is going to come in and it's going to sweep half the markets. Half of those markets are going to be swept, and when it's finished, they're going to rely upon digital currencies because Bitcoin, right? If Bitcoin was standardized, which it is to a degree, think about this: it's worth 10,000 times more than the $50 bill. 10,000 times more than the $50 bill. So you're looking at a coin that is the whole world wants right now. The world wants Bitcoin right now. You know that, don't you? All the other countries are starting to utilize Bitcoin and do all this stuff with Bitcoin. They're doing this stuff right now. So this digital currency will ultimately lead to a practice of people becoming well acquainted with digital currency. That's the whole deal right there. You get used to digital currency, and there you are. Right? There you are. You are in there. You're in there, right? But they're doing it. That's part of the beast kingdom. Right? It's part of the beast kingdom. Listen to me, though. If you're into the markets or anything like that, right, I have advice for you. Here's my advice. Always do what you do without the greed notion, right? And do the right thing with your earnings. Make sure they're earnings. And just don't steal it. Make sure they're earnings. Right? And do the right thing with it. There you go. That's what you do with that. If you're greedy and get into the markets, you're going to lose your shirt and everything else. If you're brand new and get into the markets, you've probably gotten in too late. There are a couple early ventures out there, but most of the market's too late. It's saturated. And if you put your money in there, you're just going to end up taking it out minus the fees. If you've been in there for some years, like some unfortunate people invested in certain airlines, that was worth 310, and that was when I kind of told them don't do it. They got in there, then it went down to $86. You know, they lost their shirt on. That was after 3 years. It declined to $86. Not a good idea because that's not where the world is going. Anyway, greed, well, you're not going to work well in there. In fact, when you're greedy, Malachi kicks in, right? In the book of Malachi and in another book, it tells you what happens when you're greedy. It'll be like you have holes in your pockets and situations will keep forming, stealing every dime that you have. And all that money you tried to save is going to end up missing because circumstances are going to take your money, right? These principles are just wonderful, wonderful. But as I'll say it again, guys, just so you understand, I don't mean to talk about the markets. I'm just telling you which way that the beast is forming some things up right now. And this kingdom that is unnamed is rising right from underneath the kingdoms that are installed right now. I do not involve myself in trading. I don't do that, so don't get that wrong idea. I used to know about it back in the 80s and 90s, and I was heavily involved in it back then, but I've gotten out. I was one of the ones who put a lot of money in Microsoft when it first began, and I was had quite a bit of money in there. Right, I took 2 years worth of my military pay, and I bought bonds every single month for 2 years. So just that was with over half my check. So just think of that. All that stuff has been, pretty much liquidated by then. Right, because I have to walk a different path